Hello and welcome back to another episode of Sexology Podcast. I am so excited and honored to welcome Dr. Rachel Needle to our show. Dr. Rachel, welcome to our show.
Thank you for having me.
Well, you are a return guest, so we loved all of the previous conversations we had together. And today we're going to talk about something that we haven't addressed in this particular way. We had the whole season on erectile dysfunction, but what we're going to talk about is for couples that they are in a heterosexual kind of like a relationship. I get one of the questions often is that the female partner, they're kind of anxious about like if their partner have erectile unpredictability or they have erectile dysfunction and they don't know how to approach it. So like from your clients, from the experiences that you had, how do you think like as the partner's erectile unpredictability and challenge can impact their female partner if they're in a heterosexual relationship?
And that's a great question. And it can absolutely impact a partner in a number of different ways, right? So we know that it can have adverse effects on a female partner's sexual experience. So we know that it might be harder for them to become aroused, might be harder for them to enjoy continuous sexual pleasure and even have an orgasm. And so research has found those things. It can also lead to issues with self-confidence and questioning. So, one of the things I kind of tell people is, at times the response is sometimes automatic when you're not really prepared for it. You don't really know what's gonna come up in you. So I tell people to kind of take a deep breath and definitely don't freak out in the moment. Don't act disappointed. Don't laugh. Don't sigh. Don't be mean. And in the same respect, don't blame yourself. Right? Most likely, and in more times than not, most of the time, this has nothing to do with you. But it can be very hard not to take it personally.
Absolutely. And I've certainly seen the same thing that this kind of like sometimes people see it as a confirmation that they're no longer attractive or they don't have the sexual skills and they get at times sad. And as you mentioned, the moment defensive, and they might then we're at that place of kind of like a level of stress. We might say something that might not be as relational or tactful as we want. But I also see that it can long term impact the quality of experience. So when I work with couples, sometimes the male partners that like once because of my erectile challenge because I was drinking, I wasn't able to kind of like have intercourse, and now we are as a couple kind of scared of having sex because we don't want to have the same experiences. I love that you mentioned that it's most likely it has nothing to do with you. That's been my experience. That could be someone's hormone, what like the side effects of the medication, the stress level, all sorts of things. But if we are kind of seeing it as we are lacking on certain things, that can add another relational aspect to it. So it can be definitely for some people cause some stress and frustration. And I have clients that I'm sure you do that. They say, oh, okay, it just didn't happen. Let's move on with that. But I think how we approach it and what's the story we're telling ourselves are very important as women. Well, tell us about like, okay, so if we are in a new dating relationship, like we don't know the person, we're so excited about this, we are on date number 3. And like then all of a sudden we notice that the partner is not getting aroused. What would be kind of things that it's helpful to say, and what are some of the things that are not helpful to say based on their experience?
Well, so in the moment, right? Be kind and maybe just switch gears. Do something else, other sexual activity. You can have plenty of fun without a erect penis. So you can switch gears, you can use toys, you can do other fun, arousing things. So to have fun and experience pleasure, there doesn't need to be a hard penis. So in the moment, be kind, switch gears, still continue to have fun. Then later, right? Not in that moment, but later, it's important that you communicate about it, because if you don't, you're just going to stay in your head, as you mentioned, and continue to make up these stories. And the more you do that and don't communicate, the more likely it is to impact the relationship. So communicate about it. You can ask, some open-ended questions about it, and then, support each other and how to not allow this to be something that then leads to, performance anxiety for both of you.
Absolutely. And I love the idea of switching gear. I think long-term relationship or like just a dating relationship, I think it's helpful to have a menu of different options that you can do. And I tell people always just have a menu of options, that the things that you like, because for a number of different reasons, maybe penetration, like the penile vaginal penetration, is not something you want to experiment in that moment, or there are some challenges. I love that. And someone that you just met, how do you know what are other things from the menus okay in that moment of
Yeah.
stress?
So communicate that as well, right? There are a lot of different things you can do sexually, and so you can go to some of the ones that a lot of people do enjoy, or in the moment you can communicate like, "Hey, I'd like to do this. What do you think?" Or ask permission, get consent, and start doing other things.
Absolutely. And I think the other important thing is just not try to make excuses in the middle for them. I have some of my female clients, they get just so flustered and start like, oh yeah, actually we had a heavy meal, so that's why. Like I think just saying that at times I hear from my male clients is just not helpful. And I think then kind of like thinking about how can I make it pleasurable enough for me and for my partner is important. And what if we lose interest? We see that they don't have an erection, and all of a sudden we lose interest. Then what?
Yeah. I mean, first, I think it's also really important to mention that there's another side of this, right? For some female partners, the difficulty, the man having difficulty getting an erection or sustaining it might actually be preferred. It might then kind of reset the balance to what the other person prefers in a relationship. Maybe penile vaginal penetration is not something that is most preferred and enjoyed by them. Maybe they don't want it as much. So while we look at the side that can be detrimental to the relationship, there's also this, side that could, for some, could actually make it a more even balance and more preferred sexual type of relationship. So I think we need to also remember that. But going back, I think that, it's important to have a lot of sexual activities in your repertoire, right? And it's fun to be creative and try different things. So this can present an opportunity as well, not just until, but in addition to when, your partner is able to maintain an erection, hopefully in the future.
I like that a lot. I didn't even for right now, I didn't think about what you mentioned, but sometimes also we feel obligated to kind of follow the script, right? Date number 3, first 2 dates went well. It means that like I have to have sex. And maybe you just don't like not feeling like it completely, you might not want to have the experience, but because then you see in the moment that like the partner doesn't have an erection, you might feel that, oh God, they're not interested in me, and that can shut you down. But perhaps that could be an opportunity to kind of experiment with all sorts of fun outer course things that you get to learn about the person's sexual energy and erotic part and playful part that
Yeah,
doesn't have that pressure of I gotta have intercourse.
absolutely. And then, going back to what you mentioned earlier, the importance of remembering the different factors, which there are so many that can contribute to the difficulty with an erection. There's the medical issues, and then medications that are used to treat these medical issues, performance anxiety, poor lifestyle habits, as you mentioned, alcohol consumption. I mean, contextual factors, relational factors, there's so many different things. So rather than assume it's you or get frustrated, I think, it's important to remember those things. I mean, all men at some point in their lives are going to not get an erection or lose an erection during sex. That happens, right? Maybe not all the time, but it will happen probably at least one time to most men. So it's totally normal. For some, it happens and doesn't ever happen again. And when it does, it doesn't mean that it's necessarily have erectile dysfunction, right? From where it's more frequent and occurs more often, causes distress, then yes, it might constitute and diagnosis of ED. But for most men, this will happen at least one time in their life.
Absolutely, and more for most people, more than once. I think if you're
Exactly.
above age like 18,
Yep.
There are times that you're stressed. There are times that you drank too much. Maybe you smoke stuff, and maybe you're anxious. There's so many things that can kind of lead to people not having an erection that they want to have, or you might gain it and you lose it. And it's just part of kind of being a kind of adult, active, sexual person. When you were talking about medication side effect, I was thinking about that. I hear sometimes from my listeners, I just talk about, my partner had to take the blue pill, or they went to kind of like get a pump, all of those things that some people kind of use to assist getting an erection. And they feel kind of like the female partner feels awkward and uncomfortable. Is that something that you recommend male partners to say ahead of time? Like, okay, this is the challenge I have, or you think it's okay in the moment to use that?
Yeah, listen, I think communication is very important. And, if you can talk about something preemptively, I think it also takes some of that pressure off in the moment. So I think absolutely saying, having conversations, saying, listen, this is something that I've struggled with in the past. Sometimes it happens, sometimes it doesn't, or whatever the facts are in your specific situation, is very important. And it prevents, what can sometimes be experienced as discomfort or embarrassment or frustration later, although those things aren't necessary, but they are often reported. And when it comes to PD5 inhibitors, I mean, research has also shown that women with partners who do use them have more satisfying sexual experiences than those who don't. So if you do really struggle and you use them and that's something that's prescribed, then that's okay. But I think it's important also to understand more about the origin before becoming reliant and doing that more long term. Is this physiological? Is this a real blood flow issue, or is there something else psychological going on that we can work on? But there's no harm in using, and there's absolutely benefit in communicating ahead of time, especially.
Absolutely. And I love that you're talking about exploring the reasons, because again, people are just so scared of not getting an erection. They have younger clients, they use it as insurance, that I just want to make sure I'm getting an erection. And I think then that might not be the best way of utilizing those medications. But I guess like for the people in a longer term relationship, that the partner once had kind of very consistent erection, and now they're not kind of like have as much of a consistent erection, or the firmness is gone. So it's not necessarily about that awkwardness that you feel in first date. It's more about, okay, my needs are not getting met. And how can first of all, the female partner react if that is a common challenge that the partner have in a long-term relationship?
Yeah, so if either one of them is not getting their needs met, or specifically the female as a result of the erectile dysfunction.
The female for the result of erectile dysfunction, because like with many of my clients, it's just like when you are in later stage of life, you have kids, so it's not like every day you have an opportunity to have sex. So people saying that it's my date night, I made all of this preparation, and my partner wasn't able to kind of like get an erection, and they get very frustrated if it's a consistent thing. And again, going back to being tactful, I want us to talk about what would be a good and so not good feedback on those moments.
Yeah, so I think good feedback would be, again, make sure that you communicate not in the moment, but in the moment you can communicate about, I'd really love this right now, or this would feel really good, or, let's try this. So you can tell people what you want that doesn't have to, again, have an erect penis to do.
Absolutely. And I think it's significantly easier for people in a long-term relationship to communicate that. I think like if I want to tell my partner, like, oh, let me grab my sex toy, it wouldn't necessarily as require as much a kind of effort of communication versus someone that I just met. But I think sometimes we get too comfortable with our partner, like a partner of long term, and we might say things we might not say in the first date. What are some of the like things that people kind of statements that they need to be aware of not to use during those situations?
Yeah, and I think that especially when it comes to difficulty with erection, that as you become more comfortable, you might also become, again, depending on the person, more frustrated. And so, yeah, sometimes things that are unkind and things that, are a result of feeling frustrated, or again, questioning, what is this about? Is this about me? Can build up, and we respond differently than we would maybe in that first time, or maybe we're more understanding, right? Because we're, building a relationship or hoping to build a relationship. So I think just making sure that you Keep yourself in check in that moment. Don't ignore your feelings. Process them on your own first. You don't always have to do that with your partner, where maybe it could lead to a change in relationship dynamics, but understand what that's really about for you personally. And then have a conversation when you are ready and calm and not naked in the moment, where you can feel validated, hopefully, in having your feelings, because your feelings aren't wrong. If you're struggling with this, it's okay, but you have to be able to express it and communicate it in a way that doesn't put your partner on the defensive, that doesn't carry the risk of, making this an even more challenging and uncomfortable situation.
Absolutely. I think kind of like paying attention to that narrative that shows up for you, because some of my clients at times they share that like I already feel insecure about changes in my body. He was able to get an erection. We're in our 20s, like the moment I was kissing him. Now in my 50s, I'm worried about like I gained weight, and that's why he doesn't get an
Yeah.
erection, which at times, again, as we talked about, could be so many things. Maybe the blood flow of his penis changed and
Right.
the hormones changed, and has nothing to do with how your body looks like. I think in the moment, I love that you mentioned the kind of like shifting the focus on experimenting with things from the menu that feels connecting. And at times, again, kind of like maybe your partner is feeling shame and frustrated. And I think it's a way to ask for what you would need in that moment. But I think communicating is important. How much of a direction do you think we should give to our partner in those situations?
Direction.
Like this is what I would like to do.
As much as you need. I mean, listen, everybody likes things, said to them in a different way. So, certainly, depending on your relationship and how you like to talk to each other, I'd be mindful of that. Some people like a more stern and direct, do this. And some people like, I love this, or this might feel really good, or I'd like to try this. But certainly don't be afraid to share what it is you want and what you like, um, in a way that can be heard by your partner and doesn't feel like, it's an order or direction, unless that's what they like.
That is true. And I think also kind of developing those menus, especially in your long-term relationship outside the bedroom, can be helpful. Like I'm talking about those things, because sometimes people get stuck in the shame spiral of the man feeling, the kind of male partner feeling that, oh my God, I failed, all of those negative narrative. And when the partner kind of like reaching for their sex toys that we haven't talked about it, maybe that feels uncomfortable for the partner, or they feel it as a rejection. So I think communication is important. And I think kind of changing the script is important, so you wouldn't end up at the place of avoidance, because I bet you see the kind of common pattern in the couples that like they have few bad experiences, and then they start avoiding sex, and they kind of years goes by and they might not want to have sex. So as a female partner, what can we do to support our partner with this without kind of putting them on this shame spiral?
Sure. And I think you're right that we do see a lot people that are uncomfortable communicating about it, or maybe didn't do it in the healthiest or best way at the beginning. And as a result, you just see avoidance, right? Avoidance from the person that's struggling with the erection, because they don't want to, have to deal with not only like the disappointment maybe they have in themselves because they want to have an erection and have sex, but also, whatever comes up with their partner. We have that, as well as they don't, the partner doesn't want to feel badly about themselves. And we see that happening a lot of times. So I think it's important to just get on the same page as much as you can, and not shame the other person, not make them feel bad, and vice versa. Right. It's normal to sometimes doubt ourselves when certain things are happening. That's okay. None of us have perfect self-confidences, right? Like, and just, I think be kind and compassionate towards yourself and your partner.
Exactly. And I think it's also to keep it in mind, it's important to keep in mind that sometimes with treatments of erectile dysfunction, many of the homeworks are like as a quote unquote homework for therapy, or kind of people see better results if your partner is your teammate. So they're helping you with this journey of doing these exercises. You don't need to feel like, oh my God, I have to figure it out alone on my own because my penis is broken. Your partner can be part of this journey. And many times when people go through this treatment, what happens is that they learn about number of different things that can feel exciting, and they open the door to the things that they might be interested in, but they haven't experimented before because they're focused on having the same kind of like a penile vaginal experiences. So I think it's important to know about that. What are some of the kind of the off menu, kind of like the options in the menu that you've seen people try, and that was something that was kind of like exciting for them?
So, some will have toys, which can
Mhm.
stimulate the penis and be played with and a turn on for, all partners involved. So using different toys, dressing up in different ways, and being able to just do some deep kissing, because that's something that with length of relationship sometimes subsides and it's a lot of fun and can be a huge turn on. And going back to some of those basics, right? Even some of the things that we used to do more when we were younger, like, you know, called dry humping back then, I mean, just have fun.
I love that. And I agree with you. Sometimes people think about, okay, I'm the partner or the long-term partner, I don't need necessarily to seduce them. So they just kind of like jump into the main core play, and they just like haven't been kind of that physiological arousal buildup. So I think kind of like, especially if your partner feel anxious, uh, it's helpful if you do the kind of like the kissing, as you said, like the kind of like exploring the body, dry humping, all of those things can be very fun and playful. I think that is important. And I think with the sex toy kind of idea is something that can improve your relationship. It's not like a competition with you. That is something that like that's your ally and can be helpful. Do you recommend people to kind of like talk about their sex toy outside the bedroom, do the shopping together? What have you seen that work for people?
Yeah, all the above, right? I think it's very important to talk about it outside the bedroom and what you're comfortable with, what you've tried, what you enjoy, what you want to try together. And I think it's super hot to go either online or to a store and shop together and pick things out, pick out outfits, pick out toys, pick out accessories. Can be a lot of fun. And it can also lead to some, laughing together where there are things that maybe you've never seen before, and you can both learn and talk about them together, as well as, laugh about some things like, no, I would not like that. I mean, it's a good bonding exercise too, and can be hot.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think gonna bring back that playfulness back to the relationship, because when there's some sexual challenges in the relationship, all of a sudden we become so serious and we focus on treatment and all of that. But if you can go somewhere that you can go kind of bring up that element of playfulness, that can be helpful. And there are toys that can help with challenges people have, and they can improve the partner's arousal and kind of like climaxing, like we all seen, like I guess we all, meaning in sex therapy field, the cock rings that they have, kind of vibrating piece that helps with kind of clitoral stimulation, things of those nature would be helpful for people to experiment and see what can you use it as an opportunity, if you can use it as an opportunity to improve their sex life. Well, what if the issue is the partner? Like if we tell our partner and the attraction is an issue, is that the case at times?
Absolutely. There are times people change, their tastes change. Sometimes we're not attracted to the person. And, that's a conversation as well, and a very, very delicate one. So listen, attraction can change, especially at the beginning. I tell people and they're like, well, I don't think it's a good fit. I'm not attracted. It's like, give it some time, right? Like once, other things grow in the relationship, and, it can lead to that physical attraction. I do believe that. If after a year you're not attracted, then maybe that's not going to happen in that way. But it can also be that factors in the relationship change, and so does attraction. I think that you really have to make a conscious effort to both understand that and work towards finding that attraction or something that is attractive within that person again, if that's something you both want.
I agree with you. I think when I think about attraction, sometimes people feel like the partner is not attracted to me, but sometimes the challenge might be that they're no longer interested in this particular activity that you're doing. So that
Yeah.
requires some conversation, about maybe going to sex therapy or exploring things together to see, okay, what is my erotic template now? What is it that's going to be something that makes me excited? But I know, as we talked about at the beginning of the episode, it's my experience that most of the time for couples it's more about kind of like some physiological challenge, psychological challenge that's not necessarily related to the attraction to the partner. Even
Right.
relational challenge, when people feel humiliated, not heard, not seen in the relationship, that also can be the reason.
Yeah, and even when it comes out as an attraction issue, a lot of times that's not the only factor, right? That's the one they want to pin it on and blame it on, so that we don't have to do this work and understand ourselves and look at these other things that could be playing a role. It's a lot easier to say, this person's gained weight, I'm not attracted, than, I'm drinking 20 beers a day.
I certainly seen that you're right, that like we're focusing on the wrong thing, right? That like we might even believe ourselves that that is the issue, but there's so many other vulnerable factors that we're not ready to talk with our partner about. I know that you have your group practice. I know you have so many great things that the kind of services that you do for the community. Well, tell us, how can people find you, and what are some of the ways that they can find your work?
Thank you so much. Yeah, so I have a number of different websites. I have drrachel.com, drrachel.com. And I have the group practice, which has specialists in all different areas, so that we can meet everybody's need in one place. And that's Whole Health Psychological Center. Wholehealthpsych.com is the website. And then I have Modern Sex Therapy Institutes, which is a continuing education and certification provider company. We also offer a PhD in clinical sexology. We offer a number of specific certifications, in general, like sex therapy certification, problematic sexual behavior, LGBTQIA affirmative therapy certification, sexual trauma, as well as 10 others. And that is modernsextherapyinstitutes.com. If people want to reach me, they can always email me at drrachelneedle@gmail.com as well.
Amazing. Thank you so much for coming on the show. It's always lovely to see you. And thank you for all the great work you're doing.